Hi there, and welcome to Upskilling Life. Join me today as we have a look at Ultimate Cura. We're going to take an STL file I downloaded in a previous video, load it into Cura, have a look at the settings I use, and then run it through my FDM printer, and we'll take a look at the final results. So here we are in Cura. As you can see, I already, by standard, have a printer loaded, which is why I have a representation of my print bed on the screen. And this is my FDM printer in any cubic Chiron. So here is where we use our preset printers. One of the very first things is you will need to add a printer when you first open Cura. And this is where you add a non-networked printer if it's not hooked up, and you find the details of your printer. Obviously load it in. I've got my Chiron General PLA, which is the material I'm printing with. There is a lot. So here it's just generic. You can, if you have a particular brand of material you're using, you can load this in and it will load the presets for it. Generic PLA is what I've been using, and here is a list of all my settings. The first thing we'll do, we'll open our crab pen holder, our STL file. There it is loaded in. As you can see, this is the cubic volume of my printer. Here, it shouldn't take too long to print. Let's have a look at what we can see here. So here we can select the file. Now we can move it around, position it on the plate. Just be careful that you don't lift it off the plate. Everything needs to be touching the bed. Here's where we can change our scale. So we can snap scale, actually increase or decrease the size. Here we might want to rotate it, how it sits on the plate. Or what I recommend doing if you have altered the way it sits at any point, tell it to lay flat. I'm going to turn it around. Turn it around. So we can mirror. And it supports. Here if we need to block supports. Let's start with the basics here. I'm going to rotate it into the middle of my build plate. And bear in mind that the layers will be running this way. I'm happy enough this will be sturdy enough. Have a look through my settings. So here is the profile I'm using, which is my PLA fine. Here's my layer height. And Cura is really good with the help side of things. All it takes is a bit of a hover over when you're in doubt. A bit of a read on what exactly it does. Our wall thickness. Bear in mind that when this is printed, it's basically a perimeter of wall and the inside will be empty. And then what we do is our infill, which you'll see down here. And this is to print some structure to give it strength inside the hollowness of the model. If it's just a display piece and not going to take a lot of knocks and bangs, 5 to 10% infill's fine. Here we'll use 10%, and I'm going to use cubic subdivision. Here is where we set the temperature settings for the material. So this is going to be the temperature of my nozzle to mount the PLA, and this is going to be the temperature of the bed that the model sits on, which heats up, and that's your bed adhesion. Here we can change the speed. Here's the travel, retraction if you get stringing. Look at that. I am still tweaking my FDM printer. I'm not 100% happy with the print. And here, big one, supports. Generate supports if you need to. If one of the models you've downloaded has said it's supportless and can be printed supportless, you can give it a go. A lot of the cup holders, beer can holders, things like that can be printed supportless, but generating some supports if you do. These are the settings I use, which is tree and touching the build plate adhesion, Cooling, definitely all full bore. But if you like, you can see the settings I'm using here. Feel free to replicate them if you want, or use them as a base to start from and experiment from there. Now, just a hint, the material temperatures, this will be dependent on the material that you're using. Check the guidelines for that. Speed can be determined a bit by the machine that you're using. Generally, I would recommend choosing your printer, loading the default settings for it, trialing that, and then look at tweaking from there. Those are my settings, hide that. Now what we'll do, run it through the slicer. So here you can see we've got an estimated 3.5 hours. It's going to use 20 grams of PLA, which is 6.65 meters. What we'll do, give you a preview. And this is the fun part. This is where we can get an idea of how this builds. So here's from the side is a really good representation of how the sliced layers build to create your end model. We can see the supports it's generating. These are tree supports. They can wrap around the model. They're printed very light, they don't use very much material at all. And they're all touching the build plate. And the reason I tell it to touch the build plate is I don't want it to generate the bottom of a support off the model and then up to the top. It makes the support removal really hard and can leave some rough finishes where the supports come off the model. This way it's all on the build plate. We can have a good look at how they come off once it's printed. If we have a look from the top, here we can see the layers. And go down in reverse. So this is the initial layer it's going to lay. We can see here is the model itself. It looks like it has some writing on the bottom. And here is some structure for the supports. And we can see as we move up the layers, here is a good view showing the perimeter wall, which we've set at 3 layers thick. It runs around the perimeter of the model. Inside here is hollow. You can see these triangular walls that's building on the inside. Keep your eye on those as we scroll up through the layers. And this is our cubic infill. And those just strengthen the inside, stop it from collapsing in on itself, while not using a lot of material itself. If I stop here, you can see the colour representations, the red being the outer wall. It's the surface of the model that you'll see. You see 2 more perimeters in the inside, and all of our infill. That is exactly what our printer is going to do. So let me grab out the memory stick. So my FDM printer uses the old style SD card. So I've just got my USB adapter here. And I will save that to my removable drive. And that is saved here, as you can see, as G-code, and that is the programming language that my printer can understand. So let's take it from here and get to printing. FDM, find the STL file, open it in Cura, slice it, check the supports, printed, good to go. Not a lot of post-production on that. So we found ourselves with some prints hot off the printer. So my little crab guy came off as I expected him to. A tiny bit of work removing a couple of the supports. And good to go, no extra processing. So I'm happy with that one. Like and subscribe if you want to be part of this lifelong learning community. Stay tuned for more. Thanks.